It is the new Sharron Angle. Her campaign has a spring in its step, thanks to an infusion of political pros who are now guiding her effort to oust Harry Reid. Earlier today, I talked about the recent changes in the Angle campaign and what it means for her message with Las Vegas Sun political reporter Anjanette Damon from Reno. Is this Sharron Angle 2.0? I mean, what kind of changes has the campaign done internally at this point?
It's been really interesting to watch this evolution. You had the pre-primary Sharron Angle, who is pretty loose and free-willing and passionate, had fiery rhetoric. Then she won the primary election. She started into the general election with a very small campaign staff, no money, no handlers really. She ran away from reporters literally. And now she's starting to kind of, as I put it before, her campaign's kind of starting to grow up. She's hired several professional consultants. Her campaign is taking on a much more professional national feel. Today she gave a speech in Reno to the Republicans Women's Club. She came out, her people had the press all set up. She came and talked to us for about 5 minutes or so, and then rushed off to get on her plane. So yeah, her campaign's starting to get much more of that professional feel.
And who's responsible for this?
Well, I think she's obviously had to have some time to transition from this tiny homegrown campaign that she ran in the primary to the general election. So I think that she knows, and her longtime handlers knew, that they had to grow and include some more national staff. But you also have seen the involvement of the RNC, the Republican National Committee, the National Republican Senatorial Committee, those Washington, D.C. political committees that are really interested in seeing Republican candidates win. They've helped her along as well.
How are these new people who have come into the campaign, how are they meshing? How are they working with the longtime supporters who've been with Angle for years?
Well, you know, we've heard some early reports that there was a lot of tension between her longtime staff, who have for a long time been skeptical and suspicious even of the Republican establishment, and the people that have been brought in from Washington, D.C. That talk is starting to die down some. It seems like she's gotten into her rhythm. The people that she's brought in, she has a Nevada communications director, Sarah Matthews, has worked in Nevada before. They just brought in, with the help of some D.C. contacts, Jared Agan has been with the campaign now for several weeks. He worked on Giuliani's campaign, presidential campaign in 2008, and just came out of a California governor's race. And so they're used to dealing with the press. There's been a lot more back and forth and responsiveness than there has been in the early days.
And what's the bottom line for the Angle message? How have you seen that massaged as these new people have come into the campaign?
Well, that's definitely been massaged and softened. She still has a lot of some of her same one-liners. You know, we need to cut back, take back, and what is it? Cut back, pay back, and take back. I am the right angle to take out Harry Reid. But she's definitely softening a bit on, one, Social Security. She refuses to admit that she's changed her mind on Social Security, even though her rhetoric is vastly different, from phasing out and eliminating the program now to having the government run personal accounts for people and having people have an option for the traditional program or new programs. During the primary, she said she wanted to eliminate the departments of Education, Energy, and the EPA. Now she says she wants to just trim their budgets by 5% for over the next 5 years and then see where things go. So, yeah, her rhetoric has been softened.
You talk about her new outreach to the media. She gave an interview to the New York Times, of all people. You would not expect Sharron Angle in the New York Times, but there's the piece today by Adam Nagorny. So we are seeing a real shift here with the media. Does this mean that Angle will now be very, very accessible, or will there still be some element of distance between Sharron Angle and reporters?
Well, I think any time that you're a major candidate running for a major national election, there's going to be some distance. I mean, reporters don't have total access to Harry Reid whenever we want it either, although he's been good about granting interview requests. So I just think you're going to see it more well managed. If you have your candidate come out and talk to reporters after a speech, even if it's just for a minute or two, you're not going to get the shots of them chasing your candidate into the parking lot. So I think you'll just see it more well managed. They are setting up more formal interviews, although they have done that, you know, to some extent during the beginning of the campaign.
And what about the Reid campaign? I mean, it is obviously watching this. It was very quick with rapid response after she won the June 8th primary. So the Reid camp is watching all of this. How are they responding to this new field of the Angle camp?
Well, that's what's going to be interesting. The Reid campaign has really controlled the campaign narrative, the dialogue, all of the earned media. The message has been driven by the Reid campaign. Now that you see Angle starting to have a more professional staff, you're going to see her starting to drive, or she's hoping to start driving, and has had some success so far in driving that message. So now not only is the Reid campaign putting out an opposition message on his opponent, Sharron Angle, but he also has to respond to when they attack and when he slips up and says things like Hispanics shouldn't be Republicans, or other slip-ups that he's had, if you want to call him that. Now the Sharron Angle campaign's in a position to capitalize on that and drive Harry Reid off of his message.
What is your read right now, Anjanette, on the state of this race? I mean, the latest Mason-Dixon poll showed essentially that people now are really beginning to take sides, and the number of undecideds getting smaller in this race. Is that your read about what's happening?
Yeah, the polls have definitely tightened. Rasmussen just came out, and they're in a dead heat. And I believe this is how it's going to be through November. Obviously, Sharron Angle had that bounce right after the primary election. Harry Reid was able to capitalize on her downtime and give himself a lead. And now they're both on air. They're both running professional campaigns. People in the state are sharply divided. Harry Reid's negatives are still pretty sky high. So you do see people choosing sides, and maybe that none of the above vote's not going to be as large as we originally anticipated.
Well, we have a few weeks yet to keep watching this campaign. November 2nd will be around the corner before we know it. Anjanette Damon from Reno, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate it.